All right, good evening and welcome to the Neary Building Committee meeting, also posted as a Neary Building Committee-OPM Subcommittee meeting for Monday, August 21st. It's 7 p.m. We have 6 of our 7 voting members present, plus a lot of our ex officio members as well. It's nice to see all of you again. Hope everyone's had a good summer. I know some members of the committee at various points in the time have had a very busy summer. And thank you all for your efforts on some of those processes. And I will be welcoming our OPM into the meeting when we get to that portion of the agenda tonight. First order of business is we have 3 sets of minutes. I'm going to take each one individually and ask for questions or comments. The first is the OPM subcommittee meeting from June 28th, 2023. So this should be a vote only of the 4 members that were on the OPM subcommittee.
I move that they be accepted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. That was seconded. Is there any further discussion? All right. So for purposes of the roll call, unless anyone disagrees, I am just going to call out the 5 appointed members of the OPM subcommittee for this particular one. So Denise?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And I'm going to abstain because I was not present for that meeting. So the next is OPM subcommittee from July 13th of 2023. For these, even though it was a posted OPM subcommittee, we did have a quorum of the full building committee. So we're going to vote this one as a building committee. This is not confusing at all. Any questions on those minutes? All right. Do I have a motion on those?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right. Roll call vote. Kathy?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And I'm aye for those as well. Did I get everyone? All right. The next is July 18th of 2023. These minutes are also going to be voted on as a full building committee. Are there any comments or changes on these?
One quick comment. Is Mariana doing all the minutes for the Neary Building Committee, or is it being passed around?
Yes,
Yes. They're well written.
she does a nice job.
Certainly second that.
I
And
will
she-
pass along your gratitude.
And she's been very prompt as well. I'm not having to chase, which is awesome, as you all know from chairing other committees. It's a process. So I thank Greg and the team for making her available to us and for her great job.
I'm almost waiting for a roll call vote to
All right.
basically approve, her excellent job on the minutes.
Well, we need.
Good idea, Roger.
We did not make a motion on this one, so
I heard a second though. I think you seconded it, didn't you, Jason? I think.
yeah.
He did.
Did that?
Yeah. Let's do a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Let's do any further discussion. All right. Roll call vote. Kathy,
Aye.
Roger,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
and I am I as well. Thanks for getting through those. Becky and or Keith, not sure who this should be directed to. If you could just glance through the supporting exhibits, I think especially because you were doing some of the tallying and presenting things on your screens in that meeting, any of those documents referenced that obviously are part of that process, if you could just get us the final ones that were used and presented in those particular meetings, that would be immensely helpful.
I can do that, Jason.
Okay, great. Thank you. We get to dissolve the subcommittee right now before we set up 3 more. So as everyone remembers, we set up the OPM subcommittee. That group has finished their work through the summer. Thank everyone for their efforts there, especially the beginning with that compressed timetable. in and around a holiday as well. But given that Skanska is on board with a signed contract, there is no need to have this committee anymore, the subcommittee anymore. As a reminder, our building committee has the ability through our charge to set up and dissolve subcommittees as we go, as opposed to having to go back to the select board each time we need it set up and all that. The downside is, as we set up some of these subcommittees, is the town clerk is still going to insist on everyone showing up to be sworn in each time. So apparently that's between him and actually guidance from town council. So I apologize for that. I know it's a little cumbersome, especially when you're already on the committee, but given that we're going to go into a series of dissolution now and setting up later, I just figured I'd mention that before I forget. So with that, I'm going to move that we dissolve the OPM subcommittee. And this is going to be a full vote of the Neary Building Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, this will be a roll call vote. Kathy?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And I am I as well. So that piece is unanimous. Thank you for that. The next piece is election of vice chair. I'm happy to broaden it in a future meeting if we want to reorganize in any way, shape, or form. But when Katura left us through the election process, when she didn't run again for school committee, and then her seat was subsequently refilled, we didn't elect a vice chair of the Neary Building Committee. We did elect a vice chair to the OPM subcommittee. So with that, for tonight, I'd like to set up who will be our vice chair. And then obviously, to the extent that anyone desires a change at the chair or clerk's position, I am more than happy to add that to a future meeting schedule, but wanted to fill our vacancy for now. So I'll open up for discussions and or nominations.
Who's the clerk?
Andrew?
What's the role of the vice chair?
Basically, same as any other committee, steps in to run the meetings when the chair is unavailable, conflicted, etc. And or obviously participation in matters outside of a meeting. I think given the fact that we have subcommittees, I think that the vice chair is likely not going to have to tag along, but it is another sounding board that Greg and his team have, to the extent the chair is not available during the process. I don't know. We can obviously direct it as we see fit as well.
So I'm ready to jump in and make a nomination, which I guess, there'll be discussion if necessary. I'd like to nominate Denise Eddy as vice chair.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right, that's been seconded. And it's a phenomenal choice, Roger, especially what she did on short notice on the OPM subcommittee, but I would welcome it up, open it up for further discussion and to make sure no one else is interested in the role.
Denise, do you want to do this?
Sure.
Before you get drafted?
No problem.
Any further discussion on that? All right, thank you, Denise. Let's do a roll call vote. So Kathy?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And I am I as well. Thanks again, Denise. Now,
You're
does
welcome.
anyone want to reorganize at the chair or clerk position in a future meeting? I just need to know a yes or no, whether you want to have that as a future discussion item.
I'm happy to give somebody else the clerk position, but
Anyone changes their mind or wants it, just let me know and I'm happy to add reorganization at any point throughout our process.
I'm good for the next year with both. As long as you both are willing to serve.
So am I.
I'm good with those also, but however, I guess at any meeting, it could be put on an agenda for the subsequent meeting, right? If
Or
There-
through an email to the chair at any point before posting of an agenda.
fair enough. Okay.
All you have to say is I'd like a discussion of reorganization and I'm happy to add it to an agenda. Okay. So I think what we'll do now is I'm gonna welcome in the Skanska team, and I think Jim's gonna have to keep me honest here that I pull everyone in once he gets in here himself. And Mark, if you don't mind, I tried to pull Brian in. If you don't mind just texting him and see if he wants to come in or not to the meeting.
I don't think he's got an issue coming in.
I've asked him to join a few times and he rejected my invitation, so I'll ask him again.
All right, well, I'll check again.
I just asked him one more time, see if he wants to. Jim, is Vincent with you as well?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's Vincent and C who in.
Yeah, C's in, Dale's in, and I've asked Jessica, but has not been accepted yet.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to give you co-host privileges, Jim. If anyone else in your team needs it at any point in time, let me know, but that should give you the ability to share as we go through here. What I thought we would do, and we don't have the whole group here, I think we should just start with some quick introductions, just so you know who everyone is on the building committee side, and we obviously get to know you on the OPM side, and I'm sure you'll get to know all of us a lot better throughout the process as we go here. So if you don't mind, why don't you start with your team, and then we'll go through our team.
Sure. Yeah, that works. So you have Jim Burrows. I'm going to be serving as the project director. And I guess we'll go next to Dale.
Oops, sorry. Dale Caldwell. I'll be the principal in charge.
C.
Hi, I'm C. Nguyen, and I'll be the project manager.
And Jess.
Hi, everyone. Jessica Mendez, Assistant Project Manager.
And Vinny.
Hello, I'm Vin Vadavunker. I'll be serving as the field manager.
Great.
That's our team.
Nice to meet everyone.
Yep,
And I know you've met some of our key team members along the way. I'm going to go next to the school administration. I'll start with Greg.
Good evening, Greg Martineau, Superintendent.
Keith.
Keith Lavoy, Assistant Superintendent of Operations.
Stephanie.
Hi, Stephanie Reinhorn, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning.
Becky.
Hi, Becky Pellegrino, Director of Finance.
Now I'll go to the town side, Mark.
And you forgot Kathleen.
Oh, where'd she go? She dropped off my screen. Oh, there she is. Kathleen, why don't you go? Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen Valenti, Principal of the Neary School.
And if I got it right, the only one we're missing is Steve, who's the Woodward School Principal. Is that correct? Okay. Town side, Mark.
Mark Purple, Town Administrator.
Brian. He's on mute, but he's our finance director and treasurer for the town. Go through the committee. Denise.
Denise Eddy, newly elected vice chair.
And Denise is a resident at large. And I guess for the committee members, if you can just give professional background as well, given that that's a qualification that the MSBA asks in each of our questionnaires as well.
Undergraduate degree in English, master's degree in English, and a law degree. I served on the Ashland School Committee for 16 years, chaired for 5, and was involved in building additions in the Mendez Middle School.
Okay. Go to Kathy next.
So Kathy Cook, so I'm a member of the current select board, which is why I'm on the committee, not because of my professional background. So select board was one of the designated positions that was agreed to. So Jason, you still want my professional background?
I think it's helpful.
Okay, so I'm an accountant, a tax accountant, and have been for 50 years. I worked at Ernst & Young for 13 years and have my own practice in Southborough since then. I'm a tax person. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Roger?
Roger Challen, so I'm the representative from the school committee. I guess I've been on the school committee for a number of years, was on the select board for a number of years, on the advisory committee for a number of years. So I've had a lot of background with different town committees as different projects move through. And I'm, I guess, a small business owner, and I've been one for more years than I can remember with all the things that go along with running a business.
All right, thanks. Andrew?
Andrew Pfaff, I'm the chair of the advisory committee. Background, worked for a bank and the executive director of transformation for the corporate investment bank, commercial bank. So anything from project management to technology and integrations and implementations.
Hey, Mark?
Mark Davis, member at large. I probably have about 40 years of real estate development and construction experience with, oh, good grief, I'll miss a few: Perini, R.H. White out of Worcester, and actually worked for the MBTA for a stint of 8 years in their real estate department. Currently, I am a permanent consultant to National Grid on railroad matters, because I've worked at the railroad side for a number of years in the middle of this. So I'm bringing some pretty varied experience to the committee.
All right, and Chris Evers is our other at-large member that's not, so Mark's another at-large member, and Chris Evers, who's not here tonight, he has a engineering background on the HVAC side, which I imagine you'll find very helpful when we get a little further along in the project. And my name's Jason Malinowski. In addition to chairing this committee, I serve as the chair of the Capital Improvement and Planning Committee, which is a town committee appointed by the select board. I have a professional background as a CPA in the tax world as well, although Kathy and I's paths actually never cross. So I come at this from a financial and accounting perspective. I was the chair of the last major building project in Southborough on the public safety complex, which was completed a few years ago and will be kind of mentioned probably throughout the process because of some of the things that went well and didn't go well along the way. And Kathy was actually a advisory committee member at the time on that specific committee. So I guess, any questions, or did I miss anyone? All right. So with that, Jim, unless you want to take this in a different order, the way I thought we'd go through this is have you run through with your team as you see fit, kind of the next steps, the timeline of what we're looking at over the next couple of months, and then we'll take all of our actions after that to discuss and form some subcommittees and set up the membership that goes along with it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, so I can start to run through that. So obviously, first and foremost, thank you for this opportunity. We're very excited about this project and getting the ball rolling. And in the last week, just getting everything started with the designer selection process. So again, we thank the group for bringing us on board. So just a quick note on your previous agenda item, just a reminder that with the MSBA, if there's ever roster changes, we have to update them. There's a form that we have to send through. So just a reminder, vice chair, changes around, any membership changes, we just have to make sure we keep the MSBA in the loop on that, and obviously just updating that roster form. Okay, so I think the simplest way to do this is just to run through our schedule. So there's lots of modules in the MSBA process. I was speaking with Jason last week or the week before. The one good thing about the MSBA is that it's a prescribed process. So you walk through each step. So right now we're forming the project team. Obviously OPM is brought on board, and now we're going into the designer selection process. The MSBA has the designer selection panel. So ultimately that panel votes and selects the architect. It's a 13-member panel, but the district has 3 representatives, and I can run through that membership. So between now and then, we have to form the designer selection subcommittee, which will go through that process, so that the whole group doesn't have to go through the whole process. So they meet twice a month, the MSBA Designer Selection Panel. So this schedule is all based off of, got an update last week that their first meeting agenda is full. So we're targeting the November 21st MSBA Designer Selection Panel. So between now and then, there's a lot of work to be done. So first and foremost, and we have a draft right now that me and the team have been working on for the request for services, the RFS. So that's really the first step, is to get that drafted, get that reviewed by town council or anybody on the school side that needs to look at that, so that we can get that issued. In order to be on the November 21st agenda, the MSBA has to review that RFS. So we would have a target date that we would have to submit it by, which would be November 6th. So what we have here is that it would be September 4th to meet that September 6th deadline. So with that is the formation of the designer selection subcommittee. We'll talk about it a little later in the agenda, but giving the authority to that subcommittee to review and be able to issue that RFS to the MSBA. So we obviously, and I won't run through each one of these, and I can distribute this to the group after the meeting. Obviously, we advertise. We're giving the design team a little less than a month to submit and put their RFS responses together. We obviously review it with the district, and then ultimately meet with the designer selection panel on November 21st. And then once someone is selected, then we can go through the negotiation process, similar with how the OPM process worked. So before I just jump into kind of how the RFS and the review process works, are there any questions on the timeline?
Did you say September 6th for something?
Yes, sorry. September 6th is the required date for us to submit the RFS to MSBA for their review before we put it on the street, in order to be on that November 21st designer selection panel agenda.
So the 4th should say the 6th here?
So, we don't want to be at the last minute, so we're moving it up to the 4th. Yep.
So said another way, before everyone breaks for the Labor Day weekend, you would need this designer subcommittee to sign off on the draft language along with town council, so that when you return from Labor Day, you can submit it to the MSBA to meet their 10-day requirement.
Correct. Yes. Yep.
And Jason, we're working with town council and not school council?
I don't know, Greg. I mean, Greg, do you have a strong, and Mark, I'm bringing you into this. This is a town committee. So I would leave it to the two of them to figure out which is the right council to be using here. I would say the one that has the most experience reviewing this.
I'd be most comfortable with a town council, Jason.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why we have the first meeting later this week with the subcommittee in order to review that RFS. And we're just about there with the draft. to be able to distribute. Our goal would be by tomorrow to be able to distribute that to the subcommittee so they can take a look at it. And then when we meet later this week, people can come with questions. So that right after that meeting, once everybody's comfortable, we incorporate any comments or questions that we can issue it to town council for review. Unless, are there any other timeline questions? Okay. So just to clarify, so the designer selection panel with the MSBA selects the architect and votes. What we've found is that through that process, and I definitely encourage folks to read the document that was sent around, that's the designer selection process, selection procedures. That has all the information right there. And that has all the qualification guidelines and selection criteria already prescribed in there. So going in front of the committee, obviously the district doesn't have a majority. The MSBA obviously takes the opinion of the district with a lot of weight. The key is that when we go in front of that selection panel to really have a strong case based off the criteria and the qualifications, so that we can present it to that panel, so that ultimately the district gets the architect that they have selected and want. So that's the process that we'll go through with the subcommittee. We also have building committee meetings built in here, one a month. Jason and I were talking earlier today. I'm not sure on September the 11th if we're going to need that meeting, but we always like to have them on there just for updates, or if anything comes up, that at least they're on the schedule. So that's the process. Obviously, there's lots of steps after this, but we're just kind of this is the first thing out of the gate that we have to do. So once that subcommittee is formed, we can dive into a bit more detail with that group as far as the process. So any questions on that?
Can we just scroll back up to the timeline again? This first one, the September 4th one?
Yep.
Okay, so we want to be ready to submit by the 6th, right?
Correct.
This is just going to occur pretty fast here because of Labor Day. So if we want legal counsel to review this before it goes in, I mean, we're really talking September 1st because the 4th is Labor Day.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely a tight timeline here. The RFS, we did take, when we're doing the draft, and this is typical, we did take a lot of the language from the OPM RFS. Then that's for two reasons, because, obviously just for the speed at which this has to go. And also, the group has already approved much of the language, so it should be, fairly easy to run through some of those sections. There's some additional information that we have to put in. But yeah, it's all to kind of speed that up. With the MSBA panel's schedule being locked in, we also want to get on the street as quick as possible. So it's definitely a quick timeline, but from experience from other projects, it's fairly typical for this first step to get the RFS out fairly quickly. And that was one of the first things that we did when we were notified that we were selected, was start to draft it.
All right, so you've got a draft one that's based on prior ones that the MSBA has approved.
So it's based off of, so they have their own form that we have to use for the RFS. We fill in information based on the project, and a lot of that project information is based off of what was included in the OPM RFS. And again, that's because it's already been vetted, already been reviewed by the building committee and the subcommittee.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on the schedule timeline?
So fair to say that basically this subcommittee is going to have a bunch of actions and meetings during September and October, but the broader committee, basically the 4 members that aren't on that subcommittee, are going to have a lighter schedule during that period, other than any other subcommittee they get assigned to and are meeting on, which will have a lighter meeting schedule, et cetera. So I guess regardless of qualification or not, if September or October are not good months for people, like schedule wise, this is probably not the right subcommittee.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely over the next 2 months, we'll want to meet and discuss. I think we have 2 or 3 meetings between September and October. So, yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Jim and the team?
Will these meetings be remote meetings?
Yes.
Thank
you. Yep. All right. So that's all we were going to present for tonight on the designer selection process.
All right. So can I have you pull your screen down for a second?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So with that, I think the important thing now is to make sure people are comfortable with the charge first of the designer selection subcommittee, and thinking about what our committee composition is. Basically, I took the information from Jim and put it into what I know the town clerk's going to want to see. But I think it is incredibly confusing, the membership. Not necessarily the charge of what, I think it's pretty clear what you have to carry out, but the charge is dictated a little bit in terms of membership by the requirements of the MSBA. So I asked Jim some questions ahead of time just to try to prepare for how this may look, and knowing the town's bylaw in that to actually serve on a committee, you have to be a voting member to have a vote. Sorry, you have to be a resident of the town of Southborough, right? So, Jim, I think the first thing I would like you to clarify for everyone is if we were to appoint a ex officio member that doesn't have a vote on our Neary building committee to this subcommittee, they wouldn't have a vote from the Southborough side, but would they have a vote with the MSBA?
Yes, when they go in front of the panel, as far as the MSBA is concerned, yes, they would.
Okay. So theoretically, our 2 options are as follows. We could have 2 of our 7 voting members plus one of our ex officios equal our 3 that we bring forward to the MSBA to sit on the broader panel, or we could choose to form a subcommittee in Southborough that's 3 of our 7 voting members plus one of our ex officios, and then designate which of those 3 would go and sit with the MSBA. Is that the way to think about it?
Yeah, that's accurate. Yep.
Okay.
Well, that's confusing. So Jason, first of all, this subcommittee is required, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So 3 members get to be part of the group that actually votes with the MSBA on this?
Yes.
So they literally go to a meeting where the MSBA this is on the agenda, and they vote with the MSBA on this as 3 of whoever votes?
Yes.
Yeah. Take that?
Yeah. Yeah. The district has 3 votes. And per the procedures, it's a representative of the school committee. It's a chief executive officer of the town, and then it's the superintendent of schools. Now, each of those also, it states, or they can designate or a designee. So if any of those members aren't there, then they can designate a person to represent them at the designer selection panel.
So in that case, wouldn't we want, so the chief executive, Kathy, would that be you as select board or Mark as town administrator?
For this project, it's been designated as Mark
Yeah,
already
the
by
town
the select board.
administrator.
So then, in that case, wouldn't we want to have two ex officio, Mark and Greg, and then three voting members, one of which would be probably Roger?
Well, not to add a wrinkle into that, Mark and Greg have the ability to delegate their seat, theoretically. So you don't have to have both. I would love as much participation as possible. My personal view is we should not go higher than 3 voting members is where I'll draw the line. I think the five would become pretty cumbersome and then brings in the full committee and it kind of defeats the purpose of a subcommittee. So I don't know. I see Roger and Dale. So why don't you go first, Roger, then I'll go to Dale.
So remind me again, what Mark's position was. It was just it was mentioned just a minute ago. Mark is
the chief executive
of
the town.
Okay, the chief executive of the town.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
basically, I don't know, probably 3-4 months ago, Kathy, the select board technically are our chief executive, but you can take a vote to give that basically the select board delegated that authority to Mark for this particular project so that every time a document had to be signed or executed, it didn't require a meeting of the select board.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, I take your word for it, Jason. I don't remember doing that. I don't know how we did that, but whatever.
That was in the same meeting where you you changed the makeup of our committee, where we took off one of the school committee members. You took 3 separate motions that night.
Yep. Okay.
Let me go to Dale.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Jason. Just to be clear, what Jim's talking about is on the front end is a group of volunteers, 3 to 5 members that are going to do the legwork behind the scenes. So this entire group will be part of the process. So we come back, we report reference checking, spreadsheets, and you'll see all the data. The 3 individuals from the district are the ones that go to the MSBA. Most likely that's going to be a remote meeting, but those 3 are representing the town or the committee. So everyone's clear, you will be part of the process. It just, because there's a lot of reference checking going through, there's checks, we'll provide a whole spreadsheet on the whole process. So I don't want someone to think that they're not part of this, because you hire an architect to build your school for another 50 years. So it's very, very important process. So just to make sure, there's a volunteer group to do all the legwork with Skanska, and then you have the 3 representatives that go to the MSBA. So I want to make sure that's very clear.
Okay, so do it again. CEO, school rep, what's the third one?
School committee and superintendent. So school committee is 1, superintendent is 1, CEO is 1. Each of them have the ability to designate someone though. So
that would be Mark, Greg, and Roger if we kept them without designating.
Yeah. I'm gonna go to Greg, then I'll go to Denise.
Does that mean that Mark can delegate any one of the ex officios on this standing committee this evening? I mean, so Becky, for example, or does it have to be a town, a town employee?
The way I view it is Mark could put anyone that's a sworn member of this committee. So he could designate Andrew, he could designate Mark, Denise, whomever. Does anyone in the Skanska team disagree with that?
Yeah, that's correct. The only comment I would make is I think going in front of the MSBA with that design, obviously with the designee, to have, the superintendent of schools, typically what we see is it's, town manager, assistant town manager, or that similar role, the superintendent of schools, and then a representative of the school committee. And to have those folks face to face with them, it definitely helps to that those folks are the folks running the district. So definitely if availability is an issue, then we will need a designee. But just to comment on that it definitely helps to have that representation when you go in front of the panel.
All right, go ahead, Denise.
So if I understand Dale correctly, there could actually be 6 different people, that it could be 3 on the, working on the subcommittee, and then 3 that could be designated to go before the building committee in Boston. Did I get that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, so I thought I had it to Denise just said what she said. Why would you want to have 6 different people? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm having trouble understanding who should be on this subcommittee, Jason. There's no architect in this group.
I have a suggestion. My suggestion is as follows, and I'm happy to adjust it as needed. My suggestion is that we have 3 of our 7 voting members participate in the process, with one of those being Roger, unless he chooses that he can't participate due to timing. And we also have Mark and Greg as part of that process as ex officio, unless, Greg, you choosing to designate that to another member of your team. With the understanding that when we go forward to the MSBA, that it would be Greg, Mark, and 1 voting member present for that discussion in presenting our 3 votes. Because I think, and the reason I present that forward, and it's a little convoluted, is ultimately the 7 of us are voting taxpayers. And I think we need to make sure we're voting on who we think is going to design something that would be well received by the town's residents. And while I respect and appreciate, and I think they know, we will incorporate them throughout the process, it's just not going to go over well if you have employees just sitting on that committee. It's just not.
But wouldn't Roger be that third? You know, he's a resident.
He can be. But that's 1. So are you saying Roger, Mark, and Greg?
Yeah, Roger, Mark, and Greg, which is pretty much what is prescribed, right? A designee by the school committee, right? Which would be Roger, superintendent, which is Greg, and CEO, which is Mark.
Kathy,
and then all 3 would be on the subcommittee. 2 would be non-voting, and then if Roger chooses, and then 2 other members that are voting members. So the 3 voting members of the subcommittee would be Roger and 2 others.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing.
I think you were leaving it open for the DSP representatives to be anyone. I think it should be Roger.
No, I think it's Roger and 2 others.
Not for the subcommittee. The subcommittee is Roger and 2 other voting members.
Yeah.
And the DSP is Roger, Mark, and Greg.
That's fine.
Okay.
I don't think that's what we have to decide tonight, though. I think the key is deciding who's going to be on the subcommittee and get going this week.
But I think that's important to have that lined up, because they're going to have to speak to MSBA about our selection process and why we picked these people. And if they weren't in the room when those conversations were taking place, I don't know if they could speak to it as well.
Yeah, I'm saying one of the 3 subcommittee members has to be part of the DSP with Mark and Greg. I'm fine with that being Roger. I was just leaving it open to not overcommit Roger unless he wants to be overcommitted.
Is there something else I could do here too?
We'll put you on the other 2 subcommittees when we're done.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I actually think you should be on one of the 2. Okay, so my opinion, Jason, I'm just being a little dense here. Why would you need 2 separate groups? Why wouldn't you just have 3 committee members be the 3 that go forward to the MSBA? Well, why are we trying to distinguish between, they're the ones that made the decision, made the recommendation, so why wouldn't they be there explaining their recommendation and decision to the MSBA?
Yeah, they will. But otherwise, if you set it, let's just say we set up a committee right now with Roger, Greg, and Mark. By Southborough Town bylaw, Roger is going to be making all the decisions and making a motion and approving them himself.
I agree. So I'm not supporting that. I'm saying, why wouldn't you pick 3 committee members, standing voting committee members, live here, and they're the ones that go forward to the MSBA. Why are we ending up with two different groups here?
Because I think optic wise, I think we're hearing that having the superintendent and town administrator part of that presentation usually goes a long way. I think that's what I heard. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and to Dale's point, you know, anybody who goes in front of that panel will be fully prepped and, you know, will be part of the overall process of those updates. You know, wouldn't be going in blind. You know, I think obviously when we give the update to this committee based on the direction the subcommittee goes, we'll walk through all of the rankings and how we scored everyone so that they'll be fully prepped for the designer selection panel.
So tonight, all we're going to do is appoint the subcommittee, and then we're going to continue the discussion as far as who goes to MSBA. I'm fine discussing this at a later date as far as truly who the right group is.
But Kathy, who goes to the DSP is mandated by MSBA. I mean, you can add it, they can defer, but it's, you know, Mass General Law, Chapter 70B for the specific project under consideration.
They can delegate. They can delegate.
One of whom is designated by the school committee, right? Or, you know, one of whom shall be the superintendent of school or his or her designee, and one should be the chief executive of the city of town, right? So, I mean, it's just, I mean, we could buck their thing and ask, you know, each one of those people to send a designee instead. But I think.
Okay. All right. I'm with you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Denise, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just because I think we have to, for the optics, as Jason said, I think we need to have 3 of our members on the committee and then go forward sending those 3 people that the state require to the meeting. So I think it may be a decision, but I agree with Kathy. Let's get this done tonight and then we can worry about piece B afterwards.
I agree. And we'll make sure that the makeup is such that
right,
we hit those qualifications with whoever we appoint tonight.
It's just the optics. We don't want, I mean, we all love, you know, to have the school officials involved, but the town, we don't want the town to think that these decisions were made by the school department and not by this committee.
Greg, your hand's gone up and down a few times. Are you good?
Yeah, people have made the point that I want to make, which is tonight, really, it's assigning the 3 voting members. And then secondly, there'll be an opportunity to prep and plan for the MSBA presentation in session. So, and lastly, just in terms of how we've approached this project all along in terms of working with MSBA, I think part of the reason why we got into the initial phase was because of that partnership with the town, school, etc.
All right, I see hands up. I'm just going to try to crystallize where I think we're at and move this forward, and either keep your hand up if you want to speak or pull it down. But Roger, are you willing to serve on the subcommittee?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone have an objection to that? Okay. Greg and Mark, do you think you are appropriate ex officios, or do you think someone else on your team with one representing the town and one representing the school side are better representatives?
I'm fine representing the town.
I am as well for the school district.
Okay. So then that leaves 6 other members for 2 spots. Does anyone have an interest in this?
Jason, before we go there, can I ask one kind of devil's advocate question? Could we make this selection as the full committee, or does it have to be a subcommittee? I mean, it's a little unwieldy, but I mean, we had 5 people on the other committee. I think there was some good, you know, different thoughts because we had 5, and, you know, I'm not saying this should be 5, but could we have all 7 members do the selection?
I think the scheduling and logistics just becomes very difficult. And I honestly don't know. I can speak for myself. Like, I just think adding that on top of everything else is just going to be challenging. My suggestion of how we accomplish that same goal, though, is stick to the 3 voting members. However, these meetings will be taped. Those 4 that aren't participating can watch them at their leisure And at any point in time, if there's questions or concerns about how it's trending, we can call a Neary Building Committee meeting. And I think Jim said it or Dale said it at some point in time. The Neary Building Committee ultimately will make the decisions based on, of course, recommendations and probably a lot more work by the three. I just knowing how hard it is to schedule this meeting, looking at that schedule, I think would be very challenging, but I think we can accomplish what you're looking for with that slight tweak. Kathy?
And so just to remind the seven, if we're gonna fill 3 subcommittees with 3 people, that's 9, we've only got 7. So 2 people are gonna have to do 2 anyway, so keep that in mind as you decide which one you wanna be on. So 2 people are gonna have to double up anyway, if we just keep it to 3.
And most other people here are on other committees, not everyone, but outside of this.
So I have interest in 2 committees, so I'll do this. I'll step up and do this as well as the communication, if that helps. So there, I'd carry 2, if that helps everybody.
Okay, I'm gonna park the communication one, but
Right. I'm just making it,
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I saw Mark is interested in this one. So I guess Andrew and Kathy, do you have a strong interest in this one? See, Kathy's shaking no. Andrew, where are you at?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to, or I think Chris. Unfortunately, Chris isn't here to speak up too.
I didn't get a chance to connect with him to see if he had any strong preference. I think this is ripe for his expertise if he was willing.
Could we vote to have him if he wants it, and me as a backup, maybe? Because with his engineering background, he might be good for the architect.
But that would be 4 if I add Denise in. It'd be you, Roger.
No, but that would be if he doesn't want it. So he's the representative.
Okay.
If he declines the nomination,
then you would take it.
Then I would take a spot.
But I already have 3 interested: Roger, Mark, Denise.
Oh, then I'm good. I'll defer.
I know, but I just, in full disclosure, I guess, to Denise and Mark, I do like the idea of, not that I don't think either one of you would add a ton. I do like the idea of asking Chris and having one person be a backup to him, because I think that's where his expertise is best suited out of the 3.
I think Mark's got the engineering side too.
What do you think, Denise?
I'll do whatever anybody wants. I'm just.
Then we get back to 2. Okay, and then what about a 5-person committee? And then it becomes.
All right. So before I make a motion, I'm going to make a motion that has Roger, Chris, Mark as voting members, with Greg and Mark P as ex officio. And to the extent that Chris says, no, I can't do it, we'll have the appointment reflect Denise. And Chris is going to have to make a decision like tomorrow.
That's good.
Anyone opposed to that?
As long as Denise is okay with that, she seemed to want to be on this.
No, I mean, I'm open to anything. Some of us, we're gonna have to double up anyway. So I just figured I'd double up on this one and the communication or whatever, wherever I'm needed, I'll go. So that's fine with me. If you can get a hold of him, Jason, so that we're sure, because we have to get started right away. It's kind of like what we did with, the other committee. It was like
perfect
fire
storm.
drill. We didn't have a choice. We had to step up to the plate and get it done, and everybody did a great job. When you talk about scheduling, Jason, I think the greatest thing in the world would be if we had some set schedules so that you wouldn't have to go through that craziness.
Yeah.
It's hard for you to try to get everybody in an agreement at the short notice.
You'll just have to,
you'll
just have to go through the craziness of setting the schedule, because that's not easy either. If you're
I
going to
know.
put together a set schedule.
Yeah, and keep in mind, one of you 3 are going to have to post and chair those meetings.
And you're going to have to post quickly on this first one. You can't meet before
I
Thursday.
can obviously help, or Greg can help with a posting, but once you get your meeting schedule going, it's probably going to be on all of you.
Yeah, and the schedule I had up, we have all the subcommittee meetings laid out for which days we need to meet. So that's prescribed all the way through till the designer selection panel, and I'll shoot that around.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move that the Neary Building Committee accept the designer selection subcommittee charge and appoint Roger, Mark Davis, and Chris Evers as, I'm like looking on the screen, hello, as our representatives, with Denise to serve as the backup if Chris is unable to serve.
I'll second that.
Okay. But also like to, if you're okay, let me withdraw the motion and amend it to also add Greg and Mark P as our ex officio. Is there a second to that one?
Second.
Okay. Everyone got what we're voting on? All right. And I will coordinate with this group and Jim just to get it all keyed up over the next couple of days. All right. So this requires a roll call vote. Kathy?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. So that is unanimous. That was by obviously far the trickiest one. I think the others should hopefully be a little easier. So let's go to finance next. I think the charge is self-explainable. Does anyone have any questions on that piece? All right. Does anyone have a strong interest in that?
I do.
I do.
I'm not surprised by either of those hands.
And I think that's appropriate. You got select board and advisory, and Roger, school committee is the other big budget item. So that if you're going to double up, that might be one I would hope that you would do.
Yeah, if I may, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I would definitely say for this group, because we're going to be going through the development of the budget, invoices, when we get to it, change orders, and then also the town's borrowing schedule and strategies. So I definitely think having a representative from the town side, and then also with someone with some construction background as well, so that as we're going through change orders and items like that, having some of that base knowledge is definitely helpful.
So what you just said was that it would really be helpful to have someone with construction knowledge on this finance subcommittee, correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. And when we get to, if we get through to the project and when we're reviewing the contractor's requisitions and billing, it's definitely helpful to have a little bit of that knowledge on the subcommittee.
So sorry, Jason, through the chair, I didn't get my hand up. So I actually feel that Kathy and Andrew would be important members of this committee. And how important is it to have a school committee member on this committee? So I wouldn't think it would be as important as having someone with some, construction background. Are there optics here that are important, or because I might just be an optic? I don't know.
Well, I think you'd be great on any committee. I don't think this one is the one that requires. I think I would, if you were to pick a second one, I think the communications that we're going to talk about is very important too.
Fair enough.
I actually think this one is important. I think the optics are important. The biggest project by far we've ever had, and it's a school. I think that someone who's got the background Roger does, select board, advisory, and school committee would be.
Well, Roger's going to be beneficial to any committee. I'm just trying not to oversubscribe.
I agree.
He's too valuable.
We'll put him on all three.
Should we have something that if a change order is large enough, it comes to the whole committee?
Yeah, so what we typically do, and we can talk about these approval thresholds, and it doesn't necessarily have to be decided tonight. Typically what we do is anything $5,000 or less, us as the representative, the OPM can approve it, with consultation with the finance subcommittee. Anything 10,000 to 100,000, the subcommittee can approve. Anything over 100,000 comes to the full committee for approval. So, and that's, either an individual change order, or if a change order exceeds that amount, or exceeds 100,000, it would have to come to the full committee for approval.
Is that discussable or is that written in stone?
No, that's 100% discussable. That's just what
We
we've
would set
done on.
policy.
Yeah.
We'll set the policy, Kathy.
Yeah.
That's not exactly what we did, Jason, as you know, better than anybody with public safety.
No, I would never support, full disclosure, I think we need to set that policy and discuss why it worked on public safety. We had a pretty low threshold, Jim.
Yep.
We didn't have a
Yep.
finance subcommittee, but
each district's different for where they want what to come to the full committee and finance subcommittee. So, yep, definitely can work through that.
And I would
And not
assume
to-
that, sorry,
Go ahead, Andrew.
I was
Go
gonna say,
ahead.
I would assume somebody from Skanska would be on that subcommittee, at least to add some construction knowledge to explain.
Yes. Yeah, I should have said that out of the gate, that all of these, any subcommittee, that you'll have a Skanska representative on it, most likely myself. So, or I will be on all of these.
And not to state the obvious, Becky and Brian in their official roles would be ex officio on this based on the way we've drafted the charge. And I'll also throw out, while I'm not wed to it, as chair of capital planning, I would think budgeting and that whoever holds the seat, whether it be me or someone in the future, is an important part of the advisory select board mix there.
I don't disagree with that. You were my next choice, Jason, just so you know. Since Becky's going to be involved, maybe Roger, you can wait for the communications committee.
Mark, your question?
No, I mean, I've got the construction background and contract background, and yeah, I just felt I might be more valuable on the communication side. But I'm amenable to going either direction. If you need somebody with construction, Chris isn't here. He probably has even more experience on some of this than I.
Is there any ex officio member from either schools or, John Parent or somebody that might be beneficial to have in terms of the construction side or the building side? As food for thought.
John Parent's interesting.
Got to be a member of the committee.
Yeah, you have to have a member of the committee.
Well, no, you could have an extra non-voting member.
You'd have to go to the select board and have him appointed if that's the way you want to go. And I know we talked about that a little with Brian Fantoni, who's the school director of facilities. With all due respect to John, I think he's a great asset. I would defer to the schools first.
Yeah, Brian would be great too.
And I'd be certainly willing to serve in that role and be a conduit to both John and Brian as needed.
Well, that's a great idea, Keith.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I thought Brian was going to be ex officio on this already, and Becky.
Brian Ballantyne is ex officio on this. We're talking about Brian Fantoni, who's the school facilities director.
Brian. And the first one, Jason's going to go away, right? As soon as the designer is selected, that one's going to die natural death pretty quick.
Yes. Yeah, call it holiday time period or just slightly thereafter. All right, so the only change I've heard thus far to the charge is adding the assistant superintendent of operations in addition to the school director of finance in the town finance director. Does everyone agree with that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any feedback from the school administration on that? That work for everyone? Okay, and I've heard Kathy and Andrew raise their hand in their respective select board and advisory roles. Where do we want to go with the third seat?
Sounds like you, Jason.
Okay. Roger, last chance.
You mean last chance for the,
Finance Subcommittee.
I think that, based on the fact Becky is on this, with you as the third, I think that, I might be better served, or the committee might be better served to have me on communications, maybe with Mark and someone else.
And now we have Keith too, so.
Yeah, that goes, okay.
So just to be clear, Brian is not currently an ex officio of the Neary Building Committee, so we're going to add him.
Brian Ballantyne is, Brian Fantoni is not.
So Brian Fantoni is going to be added.
No, Keith
No.
is going to do it. And Keith, you are Brian.
So we don't have to change the charge.
Correct. We just need to adjust the document that was in our packet, because it only spoke to finance director from each town in school side. I'm just thinking about how Jim will approach it when he gets, not this Jim, town clerk Jim. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve the draft finance subcommittee charge with the addition of the assistant superintendent of operations as an ex officio non-voting member, and that we vote to appoint Kathy Cook, Andrew Pfaff, Jason Malinowski as voting members, and Becky Pellegrino, Keith Lavoie, and Brian Ballantyne as ex officio non-voting members.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Kathy?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. All right, so that's unanimous. Let's go to communications. Any questions on the actual charge? Okay. Let's talk about membership. Denise already raised her hand and is not assigned to one, and I think would be phenomenal at this. Does anyone have any objections to that? Okay. Any thoughts on, everyone else is going to be doubling up here, right? So this is where a double up is going to occur. Any other thoughts?
I think Roger would be excellent at this.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I thought that was kind of where the committee was thinking of directing me, I guess I would say. So I would be fine with that.
Kathy, your hand's up.
Can someone clarify who's going to do the website part?
So typically,
Mr. Harper will understand why I'm asking this. Our IT department is quite stressed right now, and they've got a lot on their plate. So
yeah, we can work through that. Again, every district's different. So we would need some support from IT. But we've also worked into the budget for the initial startup of the website, having someone come in and do that service. The website definitely is an extremely important piece leading up to a yes vote and having all the information on there. Now, as far as the design of it, this subcommittee would start to talk through that, and definitely the subcommittee will talk in more detail on this. But any information, as far as information that goes up on the project, always funnels through us and goes onto the website. So we would be feeding a lot of the information to the website. As far as how it's hosted and designed, that's something that we'll have to talk through.
right, good answer. So, oops.
Go ahead, Kathy. Finish your thoughts.
Okay, so this one, as we know, is really important, right? Communication, we know, can make or break a project. I really didn't want to be on two, but I don't see how, I think a select board person should be part of this to be part of the communication. So I will do it. Andrew, I'm not sure you should do it because you're going to be talking to town meeting, right? So I'm not sure you should be part of this one. But Jason, you're also, capital, which is a big part of this too. So I don't know. I would defer if so we've got two, right? We just need one more. So
You got two. Andrew, I saw you agreeing with Kathy. Is that correct?
Yep.
Do you have a point separate from that?
I was just get for the website. Right now is the documents on the school district's website? I would assume because that's a different IT department, Kathy, that maybe if we use that website, it would be a little bit less burden.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a logistical question that requires Mark and Greg to weigh in offline with their teams, given all the demands on each. I think each side probably has similar volume of demands. The documents right now are sourced actually in both places, Andrew, just to make it even more efficient. Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, but like this will say nearybuildingcommittee.com, right? And like obviously we'll link it to each of the district and the town's websites, but that's essentially how this is going to look. It's not going to be a page. It's going to be its own standalone sort of site that someone go to.
Correct. Yep. We've done that in a lot of districts. You definitely don't want to bury it within the town. It definitely so that if questions come up, if you do presentations, at the end of the presentation, you can just have the link. I encourage folks to go to the Arlington High School website to see that was a very successful one that we work with the town on. But yes, yeah, a standalone definitely is easier for that purpose.
Okay, Greg, go ahead.
So Jim, you had mentioned that you have some money in the budget to potentially pay someone to get the site up and running. Is that something that could be a stipend position within our district?
So as far as the management of it, it's usually a member of the subcommittee. But as far as a stipend, I don't think we've budgeted for that. This would be what we would use. We'd probably use the other budget line item to for the startup of the website, and then the maintenance of it after that. As far as uploading items, and again, we can go through those logistics. Would be a representative of the communications subcommittee.
Mark, do you have any strong interest in this area? Not to muddy the waters anymore, but just I want to make sure I get everyone's views.
Yes. But I'm just listening to everyone else at this point. We need to be a very transparent committee for a lot of reasons, because there's other decisions being made beyond potentially the school. So I think the more lay people like myself, it might be helpful. And I personally on the website, working with National Grid and seeing their project websites, they are major tools in communicating and knowing, particularly even on the construction side of it, what's going on, what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And once the website becomes an important part of the project, people will tune in on it. So I see that as just a huge opportunity to really communicate regularly with the town. And I also see a lot of outreach at some point through this committee. So I'm available because I work out of my house and my hours are whatever I want to make them. So if no one else steps up to the plate, I'm more than happy to.
I think we're probably oversubscribed based on my math. I'll add, I think the chair, regardless of who they are, has to be on communications because you're issuing press releases. Much like I think it's incredibly valuable to have select board because they're dealing with updates in the meeting. And it's very important to have school committee because they're the ones that are going to be issuing the press release. If I just look at like all the letters that we've sent on this project to date, what were the signatures at the bottom of those letters? So I would happily give up my seat on the finance subcommittee because I feel so strongly about that from a communication perspective. I don't really have a desire to do two, but I will if I need to. But I just think that the chair and Kaylee, we obviously already have the vice chair on it. You know, those are going to be the parties likely making presentations, going to town meeting. So I'm just trying to think about like the next year and a half. We should have that. That's going to be so key. I'm just going to throw it out there just based on the public safety experiment experience.
So the tentative group, Jason, is Denise, me, yourself. That's the tentative.
Well, no, I mean Kathy
I'm
should
sorry.
have.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, and Mark has indicated an interest. I don't hear, I think he's trying to be helpful.
so now we've
we
got
don't-
5.
What's
Yeah.
wrong with 5?
Only problem is we're a quorum of 4 for the full building committee at this point.
Right,
So now you guarantee a posting of the Neary building committee every time.
right.
Which is, if we want to go that way, so be it. Because there's just so many valuable opinions, and every word matters, right? And being consistent on the messaging is going to be the most important part. I also don't think we have to set this up tonight, Jim, right? If people want to noodle on this one a little longer, this one is the one you kind of said was a little less urgent.
Yeah, I definitely think we have a little bit of time with this. We definitely want to get the website rolling, but it doesn't have to be done by Labor Day. We can slowly roll this out. I would definitely say by September, we do want to get that going. But if we were to defer tonight and have folks think about it a little bit, I don't think it's hypercritical for this meeting. But this is a very, very important subcommittee, to getting to that yes vote and controlling the message. So yeah, I definitely don't want the group to jump into a decision either.
Andrew, go ahead.
I was just thinking, I think a 3-person subcommittee, makes sense for the nimbleness of it, but I think a lot of the communications that get sent out should just be ratified by the full committee, so all the names are listed. Or if we're doing some kind of Q&A, everyone is there, kind of a thing. So I think that's where people are saying, well, I think we really should have this person in that discussion. But I think when we do those kind of forums and that kind of thing, we just convene the whole committee and make sure everybody's there to make sure that we have full cooperation. But I think for the to create the website, work on, project updates or Twitter, posts or whatever. I don't think you need the full breadth of the committee, but I think as long as we just, whenever we're doing a large release of information or we're doing a letter to the public, we can all, kind of approve it and put all of our names.
Yeah. That makes sense. Go ahead, Kathy.
So can we wait on this one and noodle on it as you said?
Yeah. Can someone just be point with Jim in the meantime, to just get the infrastructure and get all the logistics set up?
Jason, in terms of the non-voting, what were your thoughts?
I would think it should be someone from I'm opening up again how I phrased it.
It said school administration, but I just wanted to suggest Kathleen to be some kind of part of the communication team there, but I wasn't sure if that would fall under school administration or not.
I'll look to the whole group here. I think you've got Steve, Greg, Keith, Becky, Stephanie. But yeah, I think you need to have that group involved. And obviously they work as a team daily and probably can self-review. So I don't know, Greg, if you and your team have a strong view on that side.
I think, we'll be able to be nimble enough with the committee. So I don't really have a preference.
Okay. So Jim, I guess if you have questions in the meantime, just reach out, like to not delay setting it up, and then we're gonna meet in a few weeks, it seems like anyways, based on your schedule. So I think the committee should come with a view then. And Andrew, I completely agree with where you're headed. Is obviously any major communication, any sort of Q&A public forum, we're gonna have posting of the full building committee anyways. But obviously that group's gonna need to do work behind the scenes to keep that website updated. And just looking at some other town projects, not outside of Southborough, I mean, those are impressive websites. Like there's a lot of time that went into it. You can clearly tell, but also probably sold the project effectively. Okay, everyone good with that topic for tonight?
Yep.
Okay. Jim, can you just walk through the next item on our agenda, which is the authorization for the designer selection subcommittee after review by legal counsel to work with the OPM and provide direction to issue the designer selection RFS?
Yep, yeah, so that's the draft RFS. So that's just so that the full committee, with the timing that was laid out, with the target date of sending to MSBA on the 4th of September, that the subcommittee can approve that and allow us to issue it to the MSBA and then to issue it out on the street. So again, just because of the timing, so that we don't have to convene the full building committee. And obviously, we'll send around a copy to folks, but as far as actually issuing it, we're not held up by the SBC schedule.
So I guess I'm certainly in favor of that, as long as the 3 members that are part of that selection subcommittee don't have any sort of dissent or disagreement that they need a further viewpoint on. I realize it's pretty much a form document, but I think just based on the experience of some through the OPM RFS process, obviously a lot gets referenced back into that document on the back end, especially if it's close.
Yep.
Any other viewpoints there?
Yeah, I think to your point, anything lessons learned from the OPM, we should incorporate that and, tighten it up, but not just copy what we had before.
Okay, you need an official vote on this, right, Jim?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Then I will move that we authorize the designer selection subcommittee after review by legal counsel to work with the OPM and provide direction to issue the designer selection RFS.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Kathy?
Aye.
Roger?
Aye.
Denise?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. So that is unanimous. So is there any public comment? Seeing none. Meeting schedule, it sounds like the designer selection group is going to need to meet imminently. So Jim, we're going to have to work with the 48-hour posting window and all that fun. So someone will be in contact with you tomorrow to try to figure out when that can happen. And then on the actual full committee, it seems like we're going to meet next on Monday, September 11th, if that works for everyone.
Yep.
And that should be a pretty light agenda if I'm forecasting it right. It should just be an update on where the group's at on the RFS and obviously hashing this communications one.
Yep. Yeah, that's all that we have.
And Jason, we're still thinking night meetings, right? Just to.
As much as I know that's tough for a lot of people, I think it's the only thing that works based on what I've heard from the committee.
Yeah.
And are we sticking to Zoom?
I think so, unless anyone wants to propose otherwise.
I think Zoom is preferable.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. So any other business that anyone wants to conduct tonight? All right. I'm going to move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Kathy,
Aye.
Roger,
Aye.
Denise,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Andrew.
Aye.
And I am I as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Good night.